Prayer. I love talking about this. I've done this a couple of times before on my site, but I want to do this tonight to a little bit of a different angle because this is something that we are, I don't want to say we're not deficient in. We're not deficient in anything when we're in Christ. We're operating in fullness. We just don't use everything that God has provided to us in Christ. We operate a lot of times, we're knee-jerk back in the carnal and the physical, and we relate so much in the physical that we negate the spiritual to the point where we feel the spiritual is beyond our capability and beyond our interaction. This is something I want to just really address with this tonight. So prayer is the source of our communion and the source of our experiences that we have with God. That's how we connect. Beyond connect, it's how we experience. And this is something that we are not operating clearly in the fullness of what he wants us to do. Now, I printed out about 3 definitions here of prayer as it's defined online. This first one over here is, I think from Google straight out. It says prayer is a solemn request for help or expression of thanks addressed to God or an object of worship. For example, I'll say a prayer for him. And unfortunately, this is the way a lot of people, a lot of Christians especially, minus the last part, see prayer as a solemn request. We go to God for supplication. How many times do we just go to God strictly whenever we need something? More importantly, do we need something in the physical? A supplication, financial, material, food, anything that we can actually use here in the physical. Now it mentions it over here, it says a method, expression of thanks addressed to God or an object of worship. Obviously this is catering to the secular, but Christians of course don't or shouldn't pray to an object of worship. That's a topic for another time. But that was, I think that's unfortunately a definition that a lot of Christians unfortunately conform to. Wikipedia has a great definition. Now, this is not a definition I believe in prayer in its totality, but what it states here is true. Let me read this. Prayer in the Hebrew Bible is an evolving means of interacting with God, most frequently through a spontaneous, individual, unorganized form of petitioning and or thanking. Okay, the petitioning and or thanking, yes, you can petition to God and you thank. Of course, thanking God is one of the main things I do in prayer. Obviously, if I want to express something to him, if I want to deliver something to him in prayer, it's 99% of the time it's in thanks. But I love how it's described as an evolving means, which means it grows. A means of interacting, which means it involves actions from more than one party in that action. So if you interact, God interacts, you interact. I think that was wonderfully done. Most frequently through a spontaneous. I love that because I do not believe that tradition dictates our relationship with God. It is totally off the cuff, and I can relate to it completely because I am never operating on a pattern with God, and God never operates on a pattern with me. It is completely spontaneous and always the next step in front of me. I love that. Just the spontaneity just makes life just so exciting. Individual, which means that he sees each person as their own individual identity. I love that too. Wikipedia got this really, really solid. And unorganized, which means unstructured. Again, no pattern. You just go straight forward into him and he will just take it from there. It's just awesome. Now it ends with and petitioning and or thanking. So those are 2 things that are true. So again, it's not the complete, but I love that definition. I think that was by far, that one just got my I just got all giddy when I was reading most of that. The TimesColonist.com defines it as this: prayer is, in the Christian faith and many other spiritual traditions, a way of being and a way of relating to God. I like that because I said it before in a previous video, God is our Father. He is our relative. So we are relating to him. So it's clearly seeing God as a person, as somebody who you interact with. It says also to relating to God, to ourselves, and to those around us. In opening our hearts and minds and souls to God, we are challenged to grow, change, and to love. Again, a subroutine in that, but I agree. I love Wikipedia is the best though. I think that was really good. But yes, I wanted to just talk about how prayer is such an amazing. It's our not only our communication of talking, but it's our method of experiencing God here in this physical world. Because God is a spirit, we can only experience him through spirit. So we can't necessarily, although God can help work through other people to help manifest miracles that are other people work in cooperation with what he says, you can see a manifestation of something that he can provide here in the physical. God can only be experienced in the spiritual, which means we are a spirit. We are made new. Oh my goodness. Okay. So this is something that I say it before, we are not deficient in, because he has given us everything. We just don't walk in the revelation of what we have been given. We haven't been taught that, or we have just refused to just accept the fact. There's a number of different reasons. Now, prayer, I'm not going to say that it is prayer is not experientially taught through a lot of churches. I'm not saying as a method of deliberately falsifying what prayer is. I think it's being taught through traditions, through denominational passings of down from hierarchy to pastors, ministers, and preachers, and so forth. And for people who have not fully experienced God himself in the spirit to the point where they have a revelation of who he is and understanding his heart. Now, as far as customs and prayers, and again, one of the things that I have a hard time connecting with in church, and I've had a hard time admitting this to people. This is one of the great things I love talking about online, is because I can be open about this and I can have online discussions, is that I don't close my eyes when I pray. I don't. I know that's contrary to a lot of traditions in churches. People always say, close your eyes and raise your hands. I say, look, when I close my eyes, I'm ready to go to sleep. When I want to speak to somebody, my eyes are open. My spiritual eyes are open. Well, people say, well, your spiritual eyes, but not your physical eyes. Well, my physical works with my spiritual while I'm here in this world, in the event that because I have to cooperate my body and my mind to accept what my heart already knows, I have to be attentive. When I close my eyes, I don't become attentive anymore. When I close my eyes, I want to rest. But this is just me. Other people can be different. I know people who have closed their eyes before for a long time and communicated with God in the Spirit. That's fantastic. I'm not one of those people. I keep my eyes open a lot of times. Sometimes I may close my eyes and open them again. But I'm not even looking at what's in the physical. I'm completely focused on what God is showing to me in spiritual and just experiencing with him as a person in the spiritual. And then I get to see him, I get to know him, I get to be with him. I get to see his heart, get to know his heart. He guides me by the hand in the Spirit, showing me things that are just amazing, beyond words, beyond description. He can show you different worlds, different things in the Spirit that'll just your mind can't articulate. I cannot describe so many things that God has showed me. But it's not what God has shown me that has broadened my understanding and my fullness of joy. It is my fullness of just being with him. It is his presence, not just knowing that he's there, but just experiencing him too. I know he's there, so I don't want to just know that he's there. I want to be with him, and I'm going to be with him too. And every time I want to pray, he's always there. He doesn't have me on a schedule. Nope, it's not time yet. Wait another 30 minutes. Nope, he's always there. Every time I open up my heart and want to pray, he's always there. And every time I start to ask him for something, even if it's not something in the physical, but something spiritual, before I even finish the sentence, bam, he reveals it. Not only does he reveal it, but it just becomes an afterthought, because then he wants to show me about 5,100 different other things after that. It's like, okay, there you go. There's your answer. Let's go here. And it becomes a non-issue. What I've asked for God in prayer becomes a non-issue, and he shows me something infinitely greater. And it's just like, what makes the experience so amazing is because he's right there with me. Oh my gosh. And like, I told Papa like so many times, and every time he looked over to me and smiled, I said, I wouldn't care for any of this if you weren't showing me this. Because it's you, and that's what makes it so special. And he smiles at me every time. He says, I know. It's just so amazing. And this is what prayer is. It's just experiencing things in the Spirit. We don't focus on the Spirit so much because it's always about the physical. In churches and in groups, and we talk about things in life, we talk about the things that are keeping us down here on this earth. We talk about our physical ailments, especially this year, my goodness. We talk about our jobs, our families, all this kind of things, which we talk about families, that's great, but again, that's physical. We talk about stuff that we can have, we need payments, we need this. Necessities, eventually it boils down to necessities again, and then we begin to worry and we think, and we start, like junk food, we start meandering away from what is healthy for us, and we go for what seems to taste good for that immediate conversation with people, and we forget how wonderful we had in that experience with God in the spiritual. We just forget about that. And many times we want to forget about that because we can actually go to people and they can almost give us instantly what our physical bodies and our minds want. But it doesn't fulfill us. It's empty. It's like an empty box. We ask for a box and we get a box, but it's empty. But God gives us everything in his fullness. Ephesians 3:19, we walk in the fullness of God. That's an amazing truth because he's given us Christ, because he wants us home. When we read the Bible in the very beginning, in the book of Genesis, when he created man, he created Adam, he did that because he wanted us to be with him. He wanted a family. That was his complete intent. But of course, in order for us to be the family, we have to choose him. He knew we were going to choose wrong. And he went ahead and gave that, the method of Christ, to bring us back to him. He gave us the way to bring us home. And when I hear people talk about how God is making you go through these troubles and these turmoils and everything just to teach a lesson, I just want to cringe. I don't want to get too far off the point here. But people just kind of sit back to that, and then they fall back into the physical. They forget the love and the revelation that God has shown in the spiritual. Now they see it's all about what God can manifest to us here to help get us through this life. God got us through the life. Our first and primary identity is in the Spirit. That's who we are. The physical is just our overcoat. The money we have is all an attribute that's going to fall away. This house, it's all going to disappear. This video is going to all disappear. Hopefully the message that's going to give is going to help fill your heart. and help direct you directly into the arms of Christ to help you walk into the revelation of who you are in him. That's all these messages are. It's not to promote my ministry. It's not to promote anybody else's ministry. It's to promote your relationship with him. It's to help to promote the fullness of everything he's given you, to help you walk in that relationship. And you experience that in prayer. Prayer is this maximized as that full experience with him. I don't go by tradition. I don't go by religion. I don't go by the way things have been done. God is so spontaneous with me. And in prayer, that spontaneity makes life just exciting. But I always walk in the fullness of him because I know who he is. Just think about, for example, let me give you an example. If you have a great relationship with your parents or some relatives that are close to you, okay, and you know them, you've grown up with them, you've experienced everything with them, and then somebody else read something about them, and then they came to a false conclusion based on what they've read. And based on what they've read, if they didn't know them, their conclusion could be right. It could be plausible. But you know that person. You know your parents. You know that person, whoever it is. And you say, no, that's not true. But they'll say, well, I read that, and it makes perfect sense, but I know that person. I know them. I interact with them every single day. And that's not the way that they are. That's what prayer is for, so we can know God. Now when we read the Bible, we see God based on how we know him through our experiences, and we see them as affirmations. And yes, when we read these things, now we see them as, we can see them as directions, we can see them as stories, we can see them as lessons, parables. But now we see it through the heart of God because we know him. We've experienced him through that experience of prayer. When we have God, see, just experience prayer as an experience. Prayer as an experience. And yes, you can have your eyes closed, eyes open. I know I used that as an example before. But it's experiencing a person, communicating with them, experiencing life with them in a means that's untaught, unable to be described in this world. Because this world only knows how to describe the physical. Manifestations in the physical. It can't describe what you can fully experience in the spiritual. You can try. Through good communication skills, you might give a fraction of it, but you can't do it fully. And God does that on purpose because he wants you to see something that is so special and so individual to you. As Wikipedia's definition said, that was great. You can experience him now in this life, as the Bible tells us. So as he is, so are we in this life. And that means experiencing him through that experience of prayer. There's no set time. There's no set day. It can be random. You could be driving in your car. You could be winding up talking to him. You could hear a song. Share the song with him. You could be having lunch. Have lunch with him. You could be just sitting there. You could be going to the bathroom. You have a bathroom with him if you want. I don't consider that an amazing experience, but it could happen. But he experiences life with you. He wants to be with you. And you let him in for as much as you want him to. And he's always there for you. Because he loves you. And that's why he did everything to help create a way to bring you back home. He gave you the ability to choose him so you can just choose him to come home. If he wanted to make everything right instantly, we would be robots. We would not be the children that would choose our parents to go up and tell our parent, I love you. You know, I'm a dad. And nothing fills my heart more than to have my son, my daughters come up and say, I love you, Daddy. Not because they need something or want something, because they really do love me. That just warms my heart. And if you're a parent and you had a child tell you that, just because they love you, you know how much that warms your heart. And that's the relationship God has for every single one of us. And we experience that in prayer. Through that experience, yes, we can ask for things, and he will provide. But the point of prayer is to experience and have the relationship that we would have maximized here on this earth. Look at the relationship we have with other people and multiply that infinitely, and that's the relationship with God, a perfect, loving Father. I could go on much longer, but I'm going to go ahead and stop at this point. I think I've made my point. I'll let His Spirit just guide my heart, and this is a great stopping point, so I hope this blesses you. I open up for any kind of discussion, comments below. Let me know. And I thank you guys so much. It's always a pleasure just letting my heart overflow His goodness to every one of you. So y'all have a wonderful night. God bless you. And I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.